Hello, and welcome to Killers Quarterly, a special episode of Cracked Sisters Conspiracies. While we generally talk about conspiracy theories, mysteries, and all over spooky shit, we will be changing it up and talking about something different today. Serial killers. My name is Cassandra.
And I'm Jackie.
And we are said sisters.
We are rusty.
It's been like a week and a half about. And
I just meant with this particular
I was going to say,
series.
and this on top of it, like I forgot our normal intro too. Like I just completely blanked. So to throw in a, extra bit of pizzazz really threw me for a loop. So
I know it has been a while. We kept putting off recording. Yeah.
Yeah.
Been busy.
But you managed to get your shit together for today?
I did, yeah. So I thought, I'm glad you texted me because I thought yesterday you said, I'm busy, whatever. Can we do it on Monday? And I said, sure, I guess. Because I figured that's when you came back. And then you're like, we're good to go today. I went, I don't know what day it is, but I don't think it's Monday. And then I reread the text and that's fine. So finished my notes. It was okay.
It's a whole mess. My day was interesting. I started it by being a driver and chaperone for my third grade daughter's class. I had to take a couple of kids on a field trip.
Where'd you go?
We went to the Strathern House.
Oh, that's fun.
So that was fun. And so instead of doing a bus for the field trip, they did like parent volunteers to drive. I had to go and fill out so much fucking paperwork, by the way, just to be able to drive them.
I'd hope so.
3 minutes down the road. I know, but I wasn't like expecting it because.
So you're going to be like a chaperone mom? That's your vibe?
No. I think this was a one-time deal. Having a bunch of 8/9-year-old girls in the back of the car.
Terrible.
Chatting while I'm driving. I'm already an anxious driver as it is, and I get overstimulated and overwhelmed very quickly, but everyone is still alive.
Good.
I learned that all third graders are exactly the same, and kids are just fucking weird. But no, it was a fun morning. I dropped them back off at lunchtime and then ran some errands trying to.
Good. Yeah, I was wondering why you were off today. But
yeah, I took the day because Grayson asked me to be said chaperone. I said fine, and then spent the rest of the day doing prep because we're going camping again tomorrow. But yeah.
Real quick, I just checked our email and I saw that we got a Patreon subscriber.
I thought I saw something.
I think they canceled it, but I don't care because they still cared enough to come on for the first place and give us $5.
You know what? We're inching forward. So thanks.
I don't know if you want to be shouted out, but thank you to the person who
recently joined.
Even if it was accidental. I appreciate it. It made me so happy.
I know. I was like, who else do we know that just signed up? And it was someone.
No one I know, yeah.
So thank you.
Ranger.
Even if you did rescind it. But
that's okay. Thank you anyway.
What have you been up to?
Getting fucked by the IRS.
I had a feeling this would be an interesting tax year for y'all.
I just got off the phone with Mom because she saw my post about I have to make coffee at home now because we're poor.
It's a good thing you already bought the house.
Together, we owe $8,000.
Oh.
I don't trust my tax person. I think I'm getting royally fucked, but I'm out of time, so whatever.
Oh my God. I'm really hoping you did put some money aside to.
I did. I think you suggested to put 5,000. I ended up owing like just over 6 or something.
Okay.
So I did put 5 aside.
Well, the good news is you're getting married this year, so your tax situation's gonna change.
If you say so.
I didn't say it's gonna change for the better necessarily.
That's true, yeah.
But
yeah, that's going on. And then I was gonna say something else. It's hot as shit. I don't know what the temperature is for you guys.
It's been in the 80s and there's a 90% chance it's going to rain on us on Saturday when we're camping again. So
that's what Mom just said. So yeah, I just checked the weather because I wanted to go to the zoo. And Alex is like, no, it's going to be raining this weekend. I go, no, it's not. It's 90 degrees outside.
Yeah.
And then I just checked the weather and it's 81 right now. Tomorrow it goes down to 60s and then it goes down to 48 and rains all day on Saturday. So
lovely.
But I turned my air on for the first time, so it works. That's cool.
That's good to know. Yeah, it's imperative. California summers People laugh at us, but they can be a bit toasty. Already longing for the cool fall temperatures. So
No, I'm excited for summer. It's been a long winter, even though we're in spring.
there's been a lot more rain. How
That's
about
what
that?
I mean. Yeah. I need some vitamin D in my life.
Well,
I also glow if you can't. I'm the same color as my pillow.
you blend right in with the background, that's for certain. You could stand up against the wall and you could hide in plain sight.
I could. What is I? Oh, that was the other thing. I have a water leak.
What?
Don't know how that connected in my brain, but yeah.
Where?
I don't know. Our water people came last week and they knocked on the door. They're like, hey, have you noticed anything with your water? Like, we got an email saying that someone believes there might be a leak. I'm like, no. And they're like, well, it's your property that we have to look at. Can we go look at it? I'm like, sure, why not? So they came back. They're like, yeah, you have a leak. I don't know what they were saying. I asked them to clarify and they just made it even more complicated. And they're like, oh, it's between your house and the main line. Because it's a new build, you should still be under warranty. So call your builder.
Absolutely.
So I did. And she's like, okay, I'll send someone out. So she sent someone out and he's like, yep, it looks like there's a leak. We're going to come back to it next week, being this week. I'm like, okay, dude. So then he showed up today and he's like, yeah, we're going to work on it all day long. So he was fucking jackhammering all day long. So he's doing that all day. And then at the end of the day, he goes, there's so many leaks. He goes, I have to get my supervisor. We'll be back tomorrow at 7 a.m. I said, do not wake me up. He goes, I got that. And then my builder came and he was like, I'm really sorry. He let me know when this is done because obviously we pay for it afterwards. Check your water bill. And if it goes down like significantly or anything like that, because I'm like, I paid the same amount to live here. I don't think it's that crazy, but I have a feeling this leak started before we moved in and it probably should be lower. So he goes, if it's lower, just send us proof and we'll pay you the difference. I'm like, oh,
okay.
Actually very nice.
Well, I am glad they're willing and able to rectify the situation, at least monetarily.
We're just getting fucked every direction.
You know what? It's because Mercury is in retrograde.
Shut the fuck up. Oh my God. The Pop-Tarts in the toaster, and therefore Geminis are crazy. Makes some sense.
All I heard was truth right there. So
do love Pop-Tarts.
You, a Gemini, are crazy.
I do. Anyway, speaking of crazy, do you want to go first this time?
Sure.
I think I went first. So who is your killer that you are quartering?
Well, before we get started with that, just a warning to the listeners beforehand.
Yeah, mine's pretty traumatic. So.
There's some stuff. So it is Killer's Quarterly episode. So the content takes a very, very, very dark and unsettling turn. So if you don't want to hear about the atrocities that have taken place, maybe just skip this episode and go to the next one or go back and listen to one of the other 49 episodes. But anywho, my Killer's Quarterly subject is one that I initially learned about while watching the fantastic series Mindhunter on Netflix.
That's right. I forgot.
Gone too soon. It's also a book. Fantastic. You should read it. But one of the serial killers that they profiled on the show was Ed Kemper.
Yes.
And so that is who I am going to be talking about today. And I just wanted to note that the casting director who filled the role of Ed Kemper, so Cameron Britton was the actor who played him. Fantastic choice for that role. He completely embodied him. And
he looks very similar to the real Ed Kemper.
He did such a good job. Like, I mean, him himself, I've seen him look different, thank God. But yeah, they transformed him for real. So the real Ed Kemper, though, terrible human being. We're going to talk about it. So we'll first touch upon his backstory and his upbringing. Edmund Emil Kemper III.
Oh.
I would be angry with that name, too. He was born on December 18th, 1948 in good old Burbank, California.
Oh, mine's also a California story today.
In Burbank, for those of you who don't know, we're essentially a stone's throw away from where we grew.
We use their airport.
Yes. Somewhat unsurprising is the fact that he is also a middle child and the only son in the family. So he's off to a bad start. His home life didn't seem to be one that was filled with love. His father, Ed Kemper Jr., who was a World War II veteran, as far as I know, he had all of his, limbs, though. Nothing got blown up in the war.
I literally was thinking today about how I used to tell Grayson, because I didn't want to hold her hand, that my fingers got blown off in Nam and I couldn't hold her hand. And then she started saying it.
Yes, and that is something that has just been carried along with her since that time. So thank you for that.
Sorry.
His grizzled veteran father, who has seen some shit in his time, stated that wartime suicide missions and atomic bomb testings were nothing compared to living with Kemper's mother, Clarnell. So that's the environment that Kemper was brought up in. To be fair, my guess, having a name like Clarnell made her a bit salty. So maybe she was just kind of shitty for good reason.
Yeah.
Another thing to note about Ed was that he was gigantic. He was a huge guy, very large. He was 13 pounds as a newborn.
That is my fear.
As it should be. And that's another sympathetic point for Clarnell right there. If I had to birth a toddler, I would be hating life as well. The only person I know that's had a large baby, she had 2 large babies that were double-digit weights, and they were natural births, and I don't know how she endured that, but it's scary. My old colleague Whitney, when I worked at the Howard's office, yeah.
So I am hoping, fingers crossed, Alex was a preemie. So he came out at like 5 pounds.
You don't want a preemie.
I don't want a 10-pound child. My child will be massive.
Yeah, but having experienced a NICU environment from the start, you don't want that either with the preemie. So
we'll see.
There is a thing called a C-section.
I know. I really want to schedule it just to be surgically removed from my body.
That is not my jam, only if necessary. I scar too easily, and I am too vapid and care too much about how I look. So.
That's also a good point.
But yeah, gigantic fucking baby. And by the time he was only 4 years old, he was towering over the other kids. And he ended up standing at a whopping 6'9" as an adult, which he used to his advantage. In true fashion, Kemper started exhibiting troubling signs from an early age. When he was only 10, he buried a cat alive, dug it back up, decapitated it, and then mounted its head on a spike. It was the family cat, by the way. It's common practice to tell kids to go outside and dig a hole when they're bored, but you generally don't think that animal murder is going to go hand in hand with that.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Oh, after he performed said act, he totally lied to the family about killing the cat, and they believed him. And the fact that they believed him brought him quite a bit of pleasure because he enjoyed being deceptive.
How old was he?
When he was 10.
10, yeah.
So
very formative years.
Yes. So since his family didn't know that he was the one who unalived their other cat, they still had other cats in the house, and he killed another one a couple years later when he was 13. And his reason for killing the cat this time was that he felt like the cat liked his younger sister more than it liked him. And
because he killed a fellow cat.
I mean, I'm sure the feline community in that household was well aware of what happened, and they all said, stay away from this kid. But yeah, he couldn't think that he was the reason that the cat wouldn't like him.
Yeah.
But yeah, he killed that cat, ended up keeping pieces of said dead cat in his closet until his mom found them.
Huh.
Yep. In addition to the caticide, other disturbing behavior that Kemper exhibited, he would regularly steal his sister's dolls and remove both their heads and their hands. I don't know what it says about me thinking that doll head removal was actually pretty normal. I ripped the heads off of...
You remove a lot of doll heads as a child?
What's a lot?
More than one?
But anywho, this is not about me. We're talking about Ed Kemper here. I know I did some weird things to my Barbies back in the day, but never once did I cut anyone's hands off. I just want to note that. So I am not the same.
Well, I wonder, you know what I think about? I wonder, you remember Bratz dolls?
Yes.
They had little bodies. I don't know if you remember specifically, but they had nubs. Their extremities were balls. And then
they had the joints and stuff.
Joint.
Yeah.
So I wonder how many weird fetishes that gave people as a young child.
Don't know that I want to think about that. So I think we'll just move on.
Okay.
Another weird ass thing that he would do, he would sneak out of the house at night with his dad's bayonet And he would go to his second grade teacher's house to watch her through the windows. PSA, close your fucking blinds at night, people. When the sun goes down, if your windows are exposed, anyone on the street can see in while you can't see out. And the things that I have seen while casually strolling through my neighborhood on my after dinner walk.
That's my favorite thing to do.
Oh my God, yes. But don't do that if you want any sense of privacy, because people like us are going to be walking around looking in your windows.
100%.
Additionally, let's see what other weird shit. He stated in interviews later in life that he enjoyed playing games as a child, like Gas Chamber and the Electric Chair, because clearly those sound like so much fun. Your face. Yep. Again, this is still his childhood. So I mentioned he was the middle child. Mm-hmm. Ed's older sister was pretty fed up with his shit, as I would be. Yeah. And he had a few near-death experiences because of her and her, just being done with it. Notably, she pushed him into the deep end of a swimming pool where he almost drowned, as well as tried to push him in front of a moving train.
Oh, it's my fear.
I can confidently say that never once did I try to intentionally kill you. And if that doesn't earn me the Sister of the Year award, I don't know what does.
I don't think I believe that statement, but okay.
You have no reason not to believe it. Okay, Ed's parents did not stay together for the kids and ended up divorcing, which he did not take very well. He was very close to his father and was pretty devastated when he was sent to live with his mother instead. Their relationship was severely dysfunctional, due in part to her being a neurotic alcoholic who belittled and abused him, coupled with him also being kind of a monster. So they were just toxicity combined. He was often made to sleep in a locked basement as his mother was scared he would harm his sisters, which, I mean, given his track record, I don't think
possibility
he had a left field. His mom would withhold affection from him in general, but that was primarily due to her fear that she would turn him gay if she showed him too much love.
What year is this? The 40s or 50s?
No, this was in the 60s.
Oh.
Late 50s, early 60s. But yes, overall, very toxic. So since the living arrangement between Ed and his mother was not going to, work out in the long run, he decided it was just best to run away when he was 14 because he wanted to go live with his dad. And so he did, only to discover that his dad had moved on, got remarried, and has a stepson.
Oh, no.
He did stay with them for a hot second, but then his dad was like, no, thank you. I have moved on from this life, and then shipped Ed off to go live with his grandparents where he absolutely hated it. And so it's all of these little things that have started to build. Mm-hmm. Now that we've established the world that Ed Kemper was born and raised in, let's switch gears and focus on what made him a candidate for Killers Quarterly, which would be his murders. Sorry. On August 27th, 1964, when Kemper was 15 years old, he had gotten into an argument with his grandmother while sitting at the dining table. In a moment of pure rage, Ed got up, grabbed the hunting rifle that he had been given by his grandfather, and used it to shoot poor old Granny in the head, and twice more in the back for good measure.
At the dinner table?
At the dinner table. So Gramps had been out at the store doing some grocery shopping. And so when he arrived back home, he ended up suffering a similar fate as his wife. He totally panicked and shot Grandpa too, because he said that he didn't want his grandpa to see what he had done. And so clearly the best way to handle it was just to, take care of both of them.
Yeah.
So having just offed both of his grandparents in a fit of rage, he did what anyone would do, especially at 15 when you're panicking and not knowing how to proceed. He called his mom. Yeah. Probably the last person that's, gonna help. But she advised him to call the cops because, murder. And he did.
Oh.
Because he was a child and was doing what he was told. He was taken into custody. And was interviewed by a psychiatrist who deemed his crimes incomprehensible for a 15-year-old kid to commit. He got slapped with the label of paranoid schizophrenic and was shipped off to a maximum security hospital that houses mentally ill convicts at 15. While in confinement, he met with many other psychiatrists who basically said the original diagnosis was bullshit and he didn't actually exhibit any signs of a paranoid schizophrenic. In fact, he was deemed to be very introspective and intelligent. His IQ was measured at 136.
Yeah, I think I remember him being very intelligent.
Yeah, and then they had later remeasured it with the result of 145. And so he was re-diagnosed with a personality trait disturbance, which is a passive-aggressive type.
Okay.
So he got downgraded. And so they're like, no, it's not that bad because he's
both killers do have, like serial killers do have some sort of personality trait. It's not bipolar or anything like that usually.
Right. So he ended up endearing himself to the psychiatrist because they're like, he's so put together. He communicates so well. And he was a model prisoner during his stay. And so he just kissed a lot of ass. And he was even trained to give other prisoners psychiatric tests because they liked him so much. What the fuck? I don't think that's allowed.
Very persuasive.
He was just really good at being charming when he needed to be in order to work things to his advantage. And Kemper was eventually released on parole in 1969 on his 21st birthday into the care of his mother.
Ugh.
So we're right back where we started. The person that he ran away from that kickstarted all of this. So as a requirement of his parole, Kemper attended community college in Santa Cruz with aspirations of becoming a police officer.
That's adorable.
That dream was quickly shattered as he was rejected due to his size.
I'm sorry, what?
Can you be too tall to be a cop?
No, the taller the better.
That was my thought. But that was the listed reason of why he was rejected. Not the,
it's like the convicted felony of double homicide that might do it.
No, I mean, that'll happen when he was a kid. So his records were.
Oh, that is true. They are expunged.
But yeah, so it was because he was too big. Kemper managed to maintain relationships with some of the Santa Cruz police officers, though, and had been deemed a friendly nuisance at the local cop bar. He would still go and hang out and kind of rub elbows with everyone.
Yeah.
He went on to work some random jobs until he landed a position with the California Division of Highways. And shortly after he started that job, he was hit by a car while he was on his motorcycle. Because of that, he ended up receiving a settlement that equated to approximately like $103,000 in today's dollars, which is not an insane.
Someone needs to hit me with a fucking car.
Right? That's a pretty sizable chunk of money. And so he went out and did what most people do when there's a windfall and bought a car. Yeah. But it wasn't anything super exciting. He bought a 1969 Ford Galaxy. Feel compelled to look that up. It's nothing exciting at all. And so he would take his car cruising, and while cruising, he began to notice a large number of young women hitchhiking along the roadsides and began stockpiling plastic bags, knives, blankets, and handcuffs in his car. Initially, he would pick up the hitchhiking women, give them a ride, and then let them go without issue. And he did this with approximately 150 women.
Jesus Christ. It's crazy how many people used to, like how hitchhiking was just totally normal back.
It was so different back in the day. I trust no one. I don't even like seeing people walk across the opposite side of the street because I feel like something bad's going to happen. People just give me the wrong vibes all the time. So naturally, the homicidal urges started to arise, though, and he graduated to just straight up murdering all the women and blaming them as they were obviously flaunting their freedom, being hitchhikers and the ability to do whatever they wanted in his face. And so that was an offense worthy of murder. And
did he not have the ability to do whatever he wanted?
All he's doing is driving around. He's living
that sounds pretty free to me.
Pot, meat, kettle. Like it. Yeah. The logic is so flawed. Between May of 1972 and April of 1973, so just about a year, Ed Kemper killed 8 people.
Oh.
He would pick them up roadside, take them to an isolated area, and then either shoot, stab, smother, or strangle them to death.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
He would then bring their bodies back home to be decapitated.
What is that?
Sorry, I got excited. Not about decapitation. I don't know. to be decapitated, perform oral sex on the decapitated heads, have sexual intercourse with the headless corpses, and then dismembered their remains before chucking them. That's a pretty accurate face.
What's it called? Or cracking a cold one?
Oh my God. So terrible.
Don't do that. You can get a disease and it's illegal.
That is disgusting.
Yes.
So the victims.
Yes.
On May 7th, 1972, Kemper did as he had previously done and picked up two 18-year-old women hitchhiking named Mary Ann Pesci and Anita Mary Lucchesa. They were students at Fresno State University. So it was primarily like college students and stuff. After driving them for an hour, they were under the impression that he was kind enough to give them a ride to Stanford. He found a remote area and ultimately stabbed and then strangled both women to death. He then brought both bodies home, took photos of the bodies, partook in a bit of necrophilia, and then dismembered them. And then their bodies were dumped in bags near Loma Prieta Mountain. So sorry. On September 14th of 1972, so a few months later, Kemper repeated the process, this time with a 15-year-old girl named Aiko Koo. Children hitchhiking. Oh my God, terrible idea.
Yeah, but it was totally normal back then too, which is crazy.
Lots of things were normal that just won't fly these days. But the poor girl was hitchhiking to her dance class because she missed the bus. Koo was choked until she was unconscious, raped, and then killed. Her body met the same fate as the two college students before her. On January 7th of 1973, he picked up 18-year-old Cindy Shaw near the Cabrillo College campus. She was fatally shot with a .22 caliber pistol and then taken to his mother's house because he was living with his mom.
Yeah. And
kept her body there in the closet overnight. He was careful enough to make sure that he removed the bullets from Shaw so they couldn't be traced back to, his gun, as well as the other victims that, are shot over the course of his spree in order, to get rid of the evidence. He kept Koo's head for several days in order to perform irrumation, I think is how you pronounce it, but that's oral sex with a dead head. There's actually a term for it, and it's disgusting. Did that multiple times before burying it in his mother's garden, face up towards her window. So put her head in the hole so she would be looking up at his mom. And so anytime she would go out and look in the backyard, little did she know that there's a dismembered head just under the ground staring right back at her.
That is
he really did not like it.
He really hates his mom and women, it seems.
With the rest of her remains, he yeeted them off a cliff. I know, I want to laugh. It's not funny. It's awful.
Everyone deals with trauma a different way, and we have uncontrollable laughter and inappropriate jokes.
Humor is common as a defense mechanism. On February 5th, 1973, word had gotten out around the college towns that some shady shit was happening and advised students not to hitchhike and only accept rides from people that they knew or if they were vehicles that had the official university stickers on them. So they knew it was someone that worked with the school. Kemper, of course, was able to get one of these stickers.
Well, I thought
because his mom was an employee at the UCSC campus. He was then able to use that to pick up 23-year-old Rosaline Heather Thorpe and 20-year-old Alice Helen Liu on the UCSC campus. He eventually shot and killed both women and repeated the same process of bringing them back home. Though this time around, the women were beheaded in his car first, not at home. He had his way with them and then dumped their remains at Eden Canyon a week later. So he's been holding on to them for some time. On April 20th, 1973, Kemper was annoyed by his mother, who woke him up coming home late from a party. She was just trying to have a good time, okay? Yeah. She retired to her room, and he waited for her to fall asleep. And then he snuck into her room and bludgeoned her with a claw hammer.
Oh.
And then slit her throat with a penknife. He then beheaded her and humiliated her corpse.
I did know that, yeah.
Yeah. He put her head on a shelf. screamed at it for an hour because the mommy issues run so deep.
So fucking deep. Jesus Christ.
Can you imagine the things that he had to say? Like,
no, especially for an hour. That's a really long time.
Right? He threw darts at his mother's head. He cut out her tongue and her larynx.
Oh.
And he put those in the garbage disposal, but the garbage disposal was not strong enough to like actually break it up. So that was just another mess he had to deal with. And he ended up smashing her face in. Then he hid his mother's corpse in a closet and then went down to the local watering hole for a drink because nothing says, give me a cold one like mommy murder.
God.
That one was pretty gruesome too. Like there was a lot.
That's a lot to unpack.
Yes.
Just go see a therapist.
He has seen many psychiatrists.
He should like actually try.
Perfectly fine. After he got home from the bar, he invited 59-year-old Sally Hallett over for dinner and a movie. Hallett was Ed's mother's best friend. Upon her arrival, he strangled her to death and dumped her in a closet as well. Just like his mom. And he fled the scene and drove nonstop to Pueblo, Colorado, while completely cracked out on caffeine pills. Just drove, however many hours. Once he arrived, he called the police and confessed to murdering both his mom and her best friend. But the cops did not take him seriously. They did not believe him. So he called back a few hours later, asked for an officer that he knew because he was still friendly with the Santa Cruz police, and was then able to successfully confess to the double murder he had just committed. When he was asked in a future interview later on why he turned himself in, he expressed that with his mom now being dead, it was no longer a service to him murdering people and mutilating a bunch of people. So he's just like, I'm over it. I don't get the same thrills. So I'm just going to throw the towel in, and mom and her friend were the cherry on top. He was indicted of 8 counts of first-degree murder.
That was his last murder.
Yep. That was
he
the
should
last
have just
one.
Fucking killed his mom.
Yeah, but no.
Don't kill your mom, but like if you could save 7 other women or whatever, just because you have mom issues, one's not as bad as fucking 8.
Right? But he got excited, and I think he was just working up to being able to kill his mom.
Jeez.
By this point, he has killed 10 people, including his grandparents.
Oh shit, I forgot about them, yeah.
But he already served his time for those first 2 murders, but he was indicted on first-degree murder on the 7th of May in 1973. He unsuccessfully tried to commit suicide twice while he was in custody. And during his trial, he was found to be legally sane. So the insanity defense was not an option. And he took the stand and actually testified to the murders, and to no one's surprise was found guilty on all counts. The jury deliberation took only 5 hours, but that still seems longer than...
That's actually a lot longer than I thought you were going to say.
Me too. I was like, really? But Kemper actually requested the death penalty, but he was not granted that due to the moratorium placed on capital punishment in California. We have the death penalty, but it's never been used.
I don't think we've ever killed anyone.
I don't know that we have.
Someone maybe has been placed on death row, or a couple people have. I don't think anyone has actually ever died in California.
Not that I am aware of, but he was sentenced to 7 years to life for each count and was to serve his time at the California Medical Facility in Vacaville.
Oh, shit. That is less than 2 miles from my house.
I'm pretty sure I drove by it when
you make a right and a right and you're there.
Yeah. Fun fact, he was held in the same prison block there as Charles Manson.
Wow, I did not know this. Cool.
Another fun fact, Kemper will be eligible for parole this year.
Oh, he's still alive.
He is still alive.
That is crazy to know he is 2 miles from me.
Yep. But yeah, so he's up for parole again this year too. Maybe he'll become a new, citizen of the area.
Crazy.
That is so crazy.
Wow.
He had previously been denied parole and actually was like, nah, don't even offer it to me for a while. And just kind of let that ride for a few years. So we'll see what happens this year.
Wow. Interesting. Okay.
But yeah, moral of the story, don't hitchhike and trust no one.
That's the moral of the story.
And if you have mommy issues, seek help.
Go to therapy, man. Yeah. Wow. That's interesting.
Yeah. So Ed Kemper, he's your neighbor.
He is. God, that's so weird. I did not know that at all. I never thought to look up famous people that are at this prison.
Right? Yeah. There might be some other interesting ones there. Who is yours on? I think you said it was someone relatively unknown.
Yeah, this is going to be a little long, I think. It's 14 pages, but
Holy shit.
it's mostly names. There's a lot of people.
Is it at least big font?
Yeah, it's 16 by 16, but it's double-sided. So it's still 14 pages. Anyway, okay, so my
Buckle up.
is Randy Steven Kraft.
I have no idea who that is.
I'm just going to call him Randy because I feel like I take away some of his power if I just call him Randy. So he has been referred to as the freeway killer or the scorecard killer. Have you heard of either of those?
No, I haven't heard either of those.
I don't remember how I came across him, but I think I just Googled like
lesser known
infamous serial killers. But there's actually a lot of similarities to what you were saying with Kemper and with his story, which you will find.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So Randy was born on March 19th, 1945 in Long Beach, California. He has 3 sisters, and so he was also the only son. And his mother's name is Opal Lee, and his father's name is Harold Herbert Kraft.
Oh.
Randy's father worked as a production operative at Douglas Aircraft Company, and his mother worked several jobs as a seamstress and a cook at a school, and she just kind of picked up odd-end jobs to kind of subsidize their income.
Okay.
Randy was well taken care of and looked after by his mother and 3 sisters, and he described his father as distracted. He was technically in the picture, but he mostly was focused on by his mom and his sisters.
Not a hands-on kind of guy.
No. The family moved to Midway City, which neighbors Orange County, in 1948, and Randy attended Midway City Elementary School. Randy was a very good student, and in 1957, he started taking accelerated classes at 17th Street Junior High School. So he would have been around 12 years old, and they're like, you're so smart, you can just go to middle school, basically.
Oh, and another smarty pants here. Okay.
From there, he attended Westminster High School and fell in love with politics. He deemed himself a Republican and aspired to be a U.S. Senator when he grew up.
Oh, boy.
It's okay. He loses that real quick.
Okay.
Randy was an excellent student throughout high school, getting all A's, and he occasionally went out on dates with girls, but many students and teachers actually suspected that he was gay. Randy graduated high school on June 13th, 1963, and was 10th in his class. So, again, he was very smart. He then enrolled in Claremont Men's College, where his goal was to get a bachelor's degree in economics. While attending college, he enrolled in the Reserve Officers Training Corps and regularly attended demonstrations in support of the Vietnam War. So he was very pro-military, but also very pro-war. Randy later said that he did not actually feel this strongly as he was portraying, but he was kind of just mimicking his parents' beliefs, which is, I think, what happens to a lot of
That happens to most kids.
Because that's what you grow up and that's what you think that you're supposed to believe or whatever. And then you get older and then you can start forming your own opinions.
I try to be conscious of that, though, and kind of keep the opinions outside of that. Like when it comes to politics and religion, I want her to form her own opinions. I don't want it to be the driving factor.
So after his revelation that, hey, I'm not really super into this, he entered into his first homosexual relationship. Oh. He went real sideways. Because originally he was a Republican. He was for the war. He was pro-military. And then he went, just kidding. I'm going to be myself and I'm gay. So he got into his first homosexual relationship.
Okay.
In 1964, he began working as a bartender at a local cocktail lounge that catered specifically to gay men. He began coming into his sexuality at the time and was known to travel to Laguna Beach and Huntington Beach for casual sex.
Cool.
Randy wasn't sure how to come out to his family because this is still the 60s and they were very conservative. So he continuously invited male friends over for dinner in hopes that they would eventually get the hint when he wasn't inviting women over. But his mom and sisters did not pick up on anything at all. They just thought he had a lot of male friends. In 1966, he was arrested and charged with lewd conduct after he propositioned an undercover Huntington Beach officer. And because this was his first offense ever, the charges were never officially filed, so there was no record of it. The following year, in 1967, Randy's life kind of starts declining. He radically changed his political beliefs from Republican to Democratic. He started working tirelessly as a Democratic Party organizer for the election of Robert F. Kennedy.
Ooh.
And then he started becoming a terrible student. He was doing drugs, he was drinking, he was attending all-night gambling sessions. This turn of events actually made him ineligible to graduate on track because he failed his economic class and was forced to retake it.
He failed econ, the class that is aligned with the degree that he was going for?
Yes. So they're like, we can't in good conscience give you this degree because you have not passed the basic class to get this degree.
That is a bummer.
After that setback, he decided to actually start paying attention, and he did ultimately graduate a year later in 1968. 4 months after he graduated college, he signed up for the U.S. Air Force. He did pretty well in the military and became an airman first class. Not sure what that means.
Don't know.
He also decided that he wanted to come out to his family finally. And he did so. He explained that his dad was super pissed, but his mom and sisters were very supportive, though not 100% comfortable. But they're like, we still love you. We'll try. Randy was like, I just told my family. So now I'm going to tell the military.
Oh, no.
Okay. And this is 1968.
That wasn't allowed. Is that what Don't Ask, Don't Tell was? Like,
so he allegedly told a superior officer, I don't know why. And then he found himself getting a general discharge.
Oh.
So after only 13 months of service, he was given this discharge, and it was officially listed as being on medical grounds. So once he got this information, he was really pissed. So he contacted a lawyer. He's like, hey, I think they got rid of me because I'm gay, and they said it's medical reasons. I want to fight this. So the Air Force told him to go fuck himself, and they refused to change the discharge paperwork, and that's still what it is today.
That's not surprising.
So Randy then moved back home with his parents and got another job as a bartender because now he's kind of restarting his life again. He's about 19 and a half. 2 years later, in 1971, Randy enrolled in Long Beach State University to further his education and his career opportunities.
Okay.
So now we're going to talk about his first victim.
You know what? I completely forgot that we were talking about someone who kills people.
I know, right? It's like such a good bio, but then it takes such a weird turn.
Such a normal story so far.
Like, he wasn't abused. He didn't really have any like crazy trauma growing up like Kemper did, but it gets real bad real quick.
Okay.
In March of 1970, Randy met 13-year-old Joseph Francher in Huntington Beach.
Uh-oh.
Francher told him that he had run away from home, and Randy said, hey, you can come live with me, and I have a female friend that you can totally have sex with. And the 13-year-old's like, fuck yeah.
Oh,
This is great.
my God.
So the 13-year-old went with Randy to his apartment, where he was then drugged, beaten, and sexually assaulted multiple times.
Sure.
Thankfully, a bystander saw Francher, who was drugged and not looking so good because he was able to escape. So it's kind of like Jeffrey Dahmer when he got caught. The victim just kind of walking around and someone's like, that's not right. And he's only 13. So, it raised some red flags. Francher was taken to the hospital where his stomach was pumped due to an exorbitant amount of drugs in his system.
Sure.
Francher then told police that Randy had drugged and beaten him, but he did not disclose a sexual assault because he was embarrassed and he didn't think anyone would believe him.
I mean, that's common regardless of gender, age, what have you.
I know, but especially as a fucking 13-year-old boy, that's a whole lot.
Yeah.
The police then searched Randy's apartment, but they didn't have a warrant. They went to the door and his roommate said, yeah, you can come in, which is not how the law works.
Oh,
and
okay.
So I'm not sure if they actually found anything or not during that search, but if they did find anything, it would have been thrown out. So based on the fact that they officially didn't find anything or nothing that they could use, and the fact that Randy at some point admitted, yeah, I kind of took the drugs willingly that he offered me. So with those two things coupled, they decided that they weren't going to file any charges. Oh. And the fact that the sexual assault was never admitted, they couldn't take that into account.
Oh, okay.
So now we're going to talk about his relationships with people. Don't worry, there's so many more victims later.
I feel like relationships probably isn't going to be the right word to describe. But
yeah. So in 1971, while attending Long Beach State University, Randy met a guy named Jeff Graves. Graves was a teaching student and 4 years younger than Randy. The two started a relationship that ultimately lasted for 4 years.
Wow.
And their relationship was very focused on sex.
Okay.
which probably meant that it was never destined to last, and the two ultimately split in 1976.
Okay. Pretty normal.
Yeah. Shortly after their breakup, Randy met 19-year-old Jeff Sealing, who worked as an apprentice baker. Sealing was 19 and Randy was 29 at this time.
Oh.
He likes younger men.
I didn't realize that we were so far along in his age already, because I'm in my mind I'm still thinking he's younger, so that was a little jarring that it's a 10
no,
year
he's now
difference.
29 at this point, because he did take a gap between kind of ruining his life and to the point that we are now.
Gotcha.
So Randy and Sealing began dating and moved in together into a place in Laguna Beach. The two really believed in their relationship, though they both enjoyed picking up hitchhikers and willingly having threesomes together. Everyone was a willing participant.
They're all swingers.
Sealing later stated that Randy had never been violent towards him or anyone else. And Randy and Sealing dated for 6 years, but due to many different factors, the two eventually broke up.
It's a long time.
We're back to the victims. And
okay.
This goes on for a while.
I feel like I was waiting for the boomerang to bring us back.
Here we are. On October 5th, 1971, police discovered a naked body discarded close to the Ortega Highway. The victim was later identified as 30-year-old Wayne Joseph Duquette. Duquette worked as a bartender at a gay bar named The Stable, and he was last seen alive on September 20th, about 15 days prior to his body being found. When Duquette was found, his body was badly decomposed, so if there had been any signs of foul play, they weren't able to really find any.
Sure.
His death was ruled as acute alcohol poisoning, and we'll circle back a little bit later on how this specific body is related to Randy.
Gotcha.
There was a 20-year-old Marine named Edward Daniel Moore, and he was last seen leaving his barracks at Camp Pendleton on December 24th, 1972. 2 days later, on the 26th, Moore's body was found beside the 405 freeway in Seal Beach, California. Based on the abrasions on his body, police suspected that Moore had been pushed from a moving vehicle. An autopsy was performed and revealed that he had been bound at the wrists and ankles, and that his face had been beaten with a blunt instrument before being garroted.
I know that word, but why do I know it?
Well, I looked it up. I'm not sure which context it is. So garroted was a device used back in the day for torture. So basically it's a seat with a high back and someone's put into it. And then there is a piece of like metal or something that's put around the neck to hold their head against this board.
Claustrophobic immediately. Ugh.
And then either the person in the back turns something that either tightens the thing around the neck to choke them, or there is a nail or like a screw in the back of the board. And as you turn it, the screw gets pushed through and into the brainstem.
Oh.
I'm not sure which one was applicable here, but that's the term that they used.
Okay.
So if that wasn't bad enough, body also exhibited numerous bite marks and a sock had been forced into his rectum.
Uh-oh.
Which is actually pretty common among his victims.
That's weird. Also, that guy had the worst Christmas ever. Like,
I know. That's what I thought when I wrote it down. On February 6th, 1973, the body of an unidentified male was found alongside the Terminal Island Freeway in Wilmington, California. The male was estimated to be between 17 and 25 years old, and he had been found strangled, and he too had a sock, unfortunately, inserted into his rectum.
Do we know what kind of sock? Like,
a tube sock.
Tube sock, a crew sock.
I don't know what socks
thick wool sock
in the 60s.
I don't know.
It's unfortunate, nevertheless.
I shouldn't focus on that.
Probably not. 2 months later, on April 14th, 1973, the body of 17-year-old Kevin Bailey was found on the side of the road in Huntington Beach. Bailey had been sodomized and emasculated prior to his death.
Oh, no.
And in case you were wondering what emasculated was, that is when the penis and the scrotum are removed, unlike just castration, where just the scrotum is removed.
Oh, he got all his giggly bits giggly gone.
Okay, Quagmire.
That's giggity, not giggle.
Whatever. On April 22nd, 1973, a dismembered body of an unidentified underage male was found in Wilmington, California, which eventually investigators believe he had a part of. On July 8th, 1973, 20-year-old Ronnie Weeby's body was located next to the 405 freeway on-ramp. Weeby had been strangled, and his wrists and ankles suggested that he had been found and hung up before his death. On December 29th, 1973, the body of 23-year-old bisexual art student Vincent Masteus was found in the San Bernardino Mountains. Masteus also had a sock inserted into his rectum, and he was missing both of his hands. To this day, have not been located.
Oh, no.
By November 1974, the bodies of 20-year-old Malcolm Little and 19-year-old James Reeves had each been found beside a freeway with foreign objects inserted into their bodies. 18-year-old Marnie Edward Dickerson's body was also located not near a freeway, but it had similar bite marks to one of the other alleged victims.
It's unfortunate.
On January 3rd, 1975, Randy abducted 19-year-old John Lyris, who had been last seen getting onto a bus in Long Beach, California. Lyris's body was found the following day on January 4th at Sunset Beach. He had been strangled, and when he was found, there was a foreign object protruding from his rectum, and drag marks on the scene indicated that two people had actually carried his body down to where he was found.
Oh.
2 weeks later, on January 17th, 1975, the body of 21-year-old Craig Joanitis was found discarded in the parking lot of the Golden Sails Hotel near PCH. Joanitis had been strangled with a length of string, and they think it was possibly a shoelace.
Oh.
On March 29th, 1975, two underage boys were at a parking lot in Long Beach, and they got into a black and white Ford Mustang. The boys were given alcohol and Valium and driven around in the Mustang for a short amount of time. Later in the evening, two friends of those two boys were in that same parking lot, and they witnessed that black and white Ford Mustang drive up. The driver leaned over, opened the passenger seat, and pushed a body out, and then took off. And when they looked in the car, they saw that there was an additional person in the car leaned over the shoulder of the driver.
Ew, he did. Also, stranger danger. Oh my God. I would not have survived.
Dixie, there's a lot of hitchhikers. A lot of these people got in the car willingly because they were hitchhikers.
It gives me such anxiety. I straight up would have been murdered back in the day. I just know it.
I don't think you would have hitchhiked.
I don't think I would have hitchhiked, but I
would have.
I mean, but even in the 2000s, I walked home and I was always concerned that something terrible was going to happen. But
the way mom and dad let you dress, I'm shocked something bad didn't happen.
It's true. But yeah, just transplant me, 20 or 30 years before that. Fuck that.
That's a good point, yeah.
Would have been so dead.
So as the Mustang drove away, like I said, they saw the guy leaning over, so they knew there was still an additional person in the car. The two friends ran over to help May. His name was Kent May. So they ran over to help him because he was still alive. On March 8th, 1975, Crotwell, which is the name of the boy that was in the car, his skull was found.
Oh.
A jetty close to Long Beach Marina, and the remainder of his body was found 6 months later. And a jetty is like a barrier between water and places. I don't fucking know. I looked it up, but I didn't look it up too well.
That's okay.
After being told about Crotwell's murder, the same two friends who had been in the parking lot decided that they were going to do some investigating. They believed, for whatever reason, that the killer frequented the gay bar that was right near the parking lot. So they went to the gay bar, and then they started doing like an area canvas, and they were able to locate a black and white Ford Mustang. They wrote down the license plate and gave it to police, and the license plate came back to Randy Kraft.
Wow.
On May 19th, 1975, the police called in Randy to question him about the abduction, May, and the murder of Crotwell. Randy initially denied knowing either boys, but then later admitted to basically everything.
Oh.
The story was that on or around the 29th, which is the date that this happened, he found two underage boys in a parking lot in Laguna Beach and asked if they wanted to get drunk and take some Valium, and the boys said yes. After driving around a while, he dropped off May in the same parking lot and continued driving around with Crotwell in the car until his vehicle got stuck on an embankment close to the El Toro off-ramp. Randy was like, I'm going to go walk to a gas station, call a tow truck. You can stay here. He did that. There is records of him calling a friend saying that his car needed to be towed. And his story is by the time he got back, Crotwell was gone and he had no idea what happened to him.
I am so sure.
Police are like, we don't fucking believe you.
Oh, good.
So they wanted to file murder charges against him for Crotwell's death. However, the Los Angeles District Attorney refused to file because the coroner had examined Crotwell's skull, which is the only part of his body that was found. And from that one piece of evidence, they ruled that the death was an accidental drowning, even though I have never experienced a part where someone accidentally drowns and then they get decapitated and then only their head is found.
None of that lines up at all. That makes zero sense.
But I'm glad to see that the District Attorney of LA is the exact same in 2024 as they were in 1978.
So no change. Great.
Not at all. On December 31st, 1975, the body of 22-year-old Mark Hall was discovered in San Juan Capistrano. This one is the worst. So I'm sorry. Hall had been driven to a remote canyon and tied to a tree. His cause of death was listed as asphyxiation because they found leaves and dirt that had been shoved into his trachea.
Oh.
Hall had been sodomized and also emasculated, and his severed parts were then inserted into his rectum.
Oh, no.
There were burns on his chest, nose, cheeks, and scrotum, which have been believed to be from a car cigarette lighter, like the old school one.
Ooh, yeah.
And his eyes were also burned with said lighter.
Oh my God. Ugh.
He had numerous cuts on his legs, which were believed to have come from being cut all over with a broken beer bottle. And lastly, the coroner stated that Hall was alive for almost all of this torture.
That is the worst.
So I'm going to put this murder directly on the LA District Attorney, because had he fucking filed charges, this wouldn't have happened.
That's an excellent point.
And neither would the most of all the murders I'm about to talk about.
Oh, God. There's so many already.
There's so many. On April 16th, 1978, Randy abducted an 18-year-old Marine named Scott Hughes. Hughes had been given large amounts of Valium before Randy split open his scrotum and removed his testicles.
Oh.
He then strangled him to death and dumped his body next to a freeway on-ramp in Anaheim. On June 11th, 1978, the body of 23-year-old Ronald Young was found near a freeway in San Diego. Young had been emasculated prior to being stabbed to death.
Good times.
Yeah, totally. Marks on his body indicated that he had been pushed from a vehicle that was traveling at a high rate of speed. So there's some patterns that are emerging with these deaths.
My question, sorry, I'm just thinking logistically, if a body is being pushed out of a vehicle at a high rate of speed, someone is driving. Yeah. Who's doing the body pushing?
So I don't get into it because I figured this would be a really long story, but there is a big theory that Sealing, that guy he had a relationship with, for 4 years,
was an accomplice.
That he was an accomplice, or there was an additional accomplice for at least the car murders.
Gotcha. Okay, carry on.
On June 19th, 1978, the body of Richard Keith was located beside a road in Moulton Parkway. Keith had welts on his wrists that indicated he had been bound prior to his death. He had been strangled to death, but investigators also found froth in his throat, which showed that he also drowned on flurazepam and alcohol that he consumed while he was being strangled. So he literally was strangled and drowned to death at the same time.
How odd.
Which sucks.
And terrible.
On July 6, 1978, 23-year-old named Keith Klingbeil was found alive, but in bad condition next to the I-5. Klingbeil had consumed a large amount of Tylenol and alcohol before he was strangled with a shoelace.
Okay.
Unfortunately, he succumbed to his injuries shortly after telling the police his side of the story. An autopsy later found that one of his nipples had been burned with a car cigarette lighter.
God, that would have hurt so bad.
On September 29th, 1978, the body of 20-year-old Richard Crosby was found next to Highway 71 in San Bernardino. Crosby was last seen hitchhiking the day prior, and upon examination of his body, investigators discovered he had been suffocated to death and his left nipple had been mutilated with a car cigarette lighter.
Leave them nips alone, man.
He likes to burn them.
I got that.
On November 18th, 1978, 21-year-old truck driver Michael Inderbeaton, his body, was located on the on-ramp of the I-605.
Stop putting I in front of everything. You're from California. We don't say
Not
the
everyone
I
is from California.
I know,
I didn't say Interstate 5, Interstate 605. I shortened it.
It's the 5. It's the 405. You know this.
Well, this was at the 605.
605 to South Street, Cerritos Auto Square. Sorry.
Peter Beaton had been castrated and had numerous burns to his body.
Sorry, man.
And his cause of death was listed as suffocation.
Okay, well.
On June 16th, 1979, Randy abducted a 20-year-old Marine named Donnie Crizzle. Crizzle's body was found after it had been thrown from a moving vehicle on the 405 freeway.
There you go.
And his cause of death was listed as acute alcohol poisoning, but his body had rope and burn marks, which were consistent with him having been tortured prior to his death.
Lovely.
On August 29th, 1979, the dismembered remains of 21-year-old English tourist Keith Jackson was located in 2 trash bags and 1 cardboard box behind a Union 76 station in Long Beach. Jackson was missing his head, torso, and his left leg, all of which have still never been recovered.
Oh.
On September 24th, 1979, 19-year-old Gregory Jolly's body was found in Lake Arrowhead. Weren't you just there?
No, I'm going to Arrowhead. Now I don't want to go in the water.
He had been emasculated and his head and legs had been cut off after his death, at least. And his belongings were later found inside of Randy's house.
Oh.
On November 24th, 1979, the body of 15-year-old Jeffrey Sayer was found and believed to have been killed by Randy. On February 18th, 1980, the body of 19-year-old Marine Mark Marsh was located near Templin Highway. Marsh's body was missing his head and his hands, both of which thankfully were cut off at least after his death.
There's been a lot of Marines in his victim.
Yeah, so he's in a lot of Marine bases.
Oh, okay.
And he was in the Air Force, so I think he might be comfortable with that lifestyle. In the summer of 1980, Randy traveled just outside of Oregon for a business trip. He is believed to have killed 17-year-old Michael O'Fallon and an unknown male between the age of 35 and 45 before he returned and came back home to California. O'Fallon had been strangled to death after consuming Valium and alcohol, and his naked body was discovered hogtied.
Oh.
O'Fallon's camera was later discovered inside of Randy's residence. On September 3rd, 1980, after Randy had returned home from California, 19-year-old Marine Robert Lagan's body was found in a trash bag close to the El Toro Marine Air Base. All of the negatives, so the photo negatives, were found in Randy's house that showed Loggins slumped over Randy's couch with his eyes closed, and they don't know if he was dead or drugged in those photos.
Okay.
On April 10th, 1981, Randy killed 17-year-old Michael Cluck by bashing in his skull 31 times after sodomizing, beating, kicking, and burning him.
That seems a little excessive, but
This is the only one where it was very much overkill in the killing. Normally he likes to strangle. This one, he decided to beat this guy's brain in.
maybe that guy pissed him off or something.
Something. He was only 17. I don't know what he could have done.
Ooh.
The day that Cluck's body was found, Randy went to a hospital for a bruised foot, presumably bruised from kicking the shit out of Cluck. In 1982, Randy is believed to have killed 5 additional people throughout that year.
God.
On December 5th, 1982, Randy flew from Grand Rapids, Michigan for work, where he killed 2 additional men, then flew to Oregon and killed 1 additional person. In 1983, Randy killed an additional 3 more men in California. Now we're going to talk about his capture.
Jesus. Okay.
On May 14th, 1983, at 1:10 a.m., patrol officers witnessed a vehicle driving erratically on the 5. Police assumed the driver was drunk, so they conducted a traffic stop. The vehicle kind of slowly came to a stop, and then Randy hopped out the driver's seat. His zipper was down, and he nonchalantly threw a bottle of beer that everyone heard and saw.
So he was drunk driving and playing with himself at the same time.
Presumably. The officer decided that they were going to do a field sobriety test, which Randy failed miserably. And so he was placed under arrest for DUI. While all this is happening, a partner of the officer was just kind of looking at the car and saw a guy sleeping in the passenger seat. He tried to wake him and then suddenly realized he was fucking dead. And that there was a ligature mark that was visible around his neck. There was also a jacket that was on his crotch. So the officer moved the jacket that showed his exposed penis through his pants. And then there was it also had covered his hand, which showed that his wrists had ligature marks and his hands were physically tied with shoelace.
Oh, I'm surprised that guy's dick was still intact, to be honest.
I don't think he had a chance to cut it off yet, honestly. The officers booked Randy for the DUI and they called in detectives. So detectives came and they searched Randy's vehicle and they found a belt that matched the specific mark that was visible around Terry's neck. That's his name, Terry Lee Gamberlin. They also found alcohol, tranquilizers, and various prescription drugs and stimulants inside the car.
Sounds like a
The
party.
front passenger seat and the floorboard was covered in blood, though Terry was not bleeding. So they're like, where did this come from? And later they did tests and found that the blood was human. Under the carpet inside the vehicle, investigators discovered an envelope containing more than 50 photographs of young men in pornographic poses.
Sure.
Many of the subjects in the pictures appeared to be either asleep or dead.
Oh, no.
In the trunk of the car was a ringed binder containing a handwritten list of 61 names. Upon searching Randy's residence, police found more evidence, including clothing and personal items belonging to all of the men that he killed, along with all of the negatives of the pictures that they had found in his car.
Oh, my God.
So now for his charges that were filed against him. On May 16th, 1983, Randy was formally charged with the murder of Terry, the dead guy found in the car in the truck stop.
Sure.
By September, investigators had interviewed over 700 witnesses and gathered more than 250 physical evidences, which pointed towards Kraft's guilt and further 15 homicides that had been committed. So in December of 1972, he was formally charged with 15 murders, in addition to 2 counts of sodomy and 1 count of emasculation, which does not seem high enough in my
Right? No. And we're just scratching the surface on the actual amount of murders committed. Like,
Exactly. The trial lasted a total of 13 months, and it is the most expensive trial in Orange County's history.
Oh.
During the trial, the defense showed a PET scan of Randy, which allegedly showed abnormalities in his frontal lobe, which suggests that he had reduced ability to control his impulses and his emotions, which is like the go-to serial killer excuse.
I don't feel bad.
Following the closing arguments, the jury deliberated for 11 days before reaching their verdict.
11 days.
Which is actually a lot longer than I thought. Also like Kemper. On May 12th, 1989, Kraft was found guilty of 16 counts of murder,
Okay.
1 count of sodomy, and 1 count of emasculation. So every single charge that was filed, they found him guilty of.
I certainly hope so.
The jury sentenced him to death on August 11th, 1989. And currently, to this day, Randy is still alive and on death row, and he is at San Quentin State Prison. He continues to deny responsibility for any of the homicides that he was convicted of doing or suspected of committing. And then real lastly, the reason why he got the scorecard killer nickname is because, as I mentioned, when the detectives were searching his car, they found that binder in his trunk that had 61 handwritten pages. What was written on those pages were terms or phrases, and police believe that the terms had been used to identify each of his victims. Sometimes it was the victim's initials, their location, where they were killed, or where their body parts were found.
Oh.
And a couple of them. So Duquette, he was one of the earlier victims. He had stable written next to him, and he was a bartender at the stable. That was the name of it.
Gotcha.
Keith Jackson was titled England because he was a tourist from England. Like, they're not very good.
Not clever at all.
Clever, yeah. Michael Cluck was called Portland Blood. He's the one that was beat in the face 31 times and there was a shit ton of blood. So based on the bodies found with the same MO and the entries in the binder, it's believed that Randy killed anywhere between 65 and 67 men.
Wow.
But unfortunately, he was only convicted of 16. But that is Randy Steven Kraft.
I have never heard about any of that.
Me neither.
That was shocking. That is such a huge body count. I'm surprised that that's not a more widely known.
I know. I agree.
Wow. Okay. Wow. Again, I'm glad I didn't exist back in those days.
I know. But I wonder, like, how many serial killers are active right now?
It's a great question. And with technology and other things, it's either helpful or harmful to the venture. So I don't know.
It's true.
It could go either way. Okay, well, that was a very interesting Killers Quarterly episode. Can't wait to do it again in 25 more weeks, roughly. But yeah, so you should check us out on social media if you have any other maybe lesser known serial killers that you'd like us to cover in a long time. Or you can give us suggestions for other normal topics to cover. You can reach out to us primarily on Instagram. Just send us a DM. It's the best way to get a hold of us. We have an email, cracktsistersconspiracies@gmail.com. We have an X that you're so proud of and a Facebook. But
not one notification.
See, I think you should just lower your expectations. We also have a Patreon where, I mean, hey, pay $5, see if you like it. Come pop in, say hello. We really appreciate it. And then, yeah, we have a TikTok as well where I just post little clips that you can get the full episodes on Patreon. But yeah, with that, I'm going to say stay cracked, y'all.
And have a great day.